Meghan, the most polarizing woman in the world, is unraveling in real time. And the one man who saw it coming years before anyone else, the man who lost one of the biggest jobs in British broadcasting for daring to say it out loud, is watching it all unfold exactly the way he predicted. Piers Morgan, love him or hate him, you cannot ignore this. Everything he warned us about is happening right now. All of it at the same time. Today we are breaking down the 10 shocking truths Piers Morgan has been screaming into the void for 5 straight years. The truths that cost him his career. The truths the mainstream media laughed at. The truths that are now one by one being confirmed in the most spectacular, most public, most irreversible fashion imaginable. Stay with me all the way to number 1, because that one is going to change the way you see this entire story. Let's get into it. Truth 10. The contradiction she cannot explain. We start here because this is a moment everything cracked open in plain sight, and millions of people saw it happen in real time. Weeks ago, Meghan sat down with her close friend Jamie Cornlima, rocking chairs, no makeup, soft lighting, the whole setup designed to say, "This is the real me." She looked directly into that camera and told the world she was living the happiest, most fulfilled life she had ever known. Those were her words. She talked about her beautiful children, her thriving marriage, her incredible life in California. She compared Prince Harry to a Super Mario Bros. Hero, her protector, her champion, her everything. Write that down because the timeline matters enormously here. Then on April 25th, just weeks later, she posted something to her 4.5 million followers that sent the internet into an absolute tailspin. She shared a quote about ending the hardest 7 years of your life. She shared it twice. On the same day, Piers Morgan reacted within hours, and the first thing he did was count backwards. 7 years from April 2025 lands you squarely in 2018. Her wedding year. The year she married Prince Harry. The year she became part of the most famous family on the planet. Is that a coincidence? Piers doesn't believe in coincidences when it comes to Meghan Markle. He never has. He has said repeatedly and with absolute conviction that this woman speaks in layers. Everything is deniable. Everything is pointed. Nothing is accidental. So, let me ask you something directly. How do you go from the happiest life you've ever known to the hardest 7 years of your life in the space of 3 weeks? Which version of Meghan Markle are we supposed to believe? Because both statements cannot be true simultaneously. They cannot even coexist in the same sentence. This is where Piers has always started. Not with accusations, not with personal attacks, but with the most basic journalistic question in the book. Do the facts line up? And the answer again and again is no. Truth 9. The Queen Who Never Was. Here is something that Piers Morgan has hammered on for 5 years that somehow keeps getting overlooked every single time a new controversy erupts. Meghan Markle is not a queen. She walked away from the royal family in January 2020. She and Harry made that choice publicly, dramatically, and irreversibly. They left the institution. They rejected the duties. They stepped back from the roles. And yet, and this is the part that drives Piers to genuine fury, she has spent every single year since then carefully, methodically surrounding herself with people who treat her like one. A Las Vegas astrologer who describes herself as a ride-or-die astrologer for, quote, hot mess people recently posted about Meghan and used the phrase, "Here's to reigning again, capital R, capital Q, Queen." And when that astrologer's post went viral, she was thrilled that Meghan had shared her content. Think about what that tells you about the ecosystem Meghan has built around herself. The people in her inner circle, the people she elevates, the people she amplifies, they are the ones calling her royalty. They are the ones telling her the planets owe her a comeback. They are the ones keeping alive the identity she technically surrendered the moment she touched down in California. Piers has called her podcast moment, where she referred to herself as a princess on air, one of the most revealing things she has ever done. She told little girls she was a real princess. She is not a princess. She knows she is not a princess, but she said it anyway because the brand requires it. The commercial value depends on it. And here is Piers Morgan's central argument, the one he has never abandoned. You cannot hold the crown and the victim story at the same time. You cannot walk away from an institution, publicly attack it, profit from attacking it, and then trade on its name and imagery to sell candles and jam. You pick one. Meghan has spent 7 years refusing to pick one, and the public on both sides of the Atlantic has grown extraordinarily tired of watching her try. Truth 8. The Serena Williams disaster nobody saw coming. Now we get to the moment that Piers Morgan called one of the most unintentionally revealing PR disasters in the history of modern celebrity branding. And trust me, you need to understand the full picture here because the surface story is embarrassing enough, but what's underneath it is genuinely damning. Bleed as Meghan. Oh, could it be cause he married a British prince and then dragged him out of his country off to a California mansion? Meghan launched her Mother's Day collection. We are talking 64-pound candles, 42-pound gourmet chocolates in a powder blue box, a lifestyle brand presenting itself as aspirational luxury for the discerning modern woman. She sent a PR package to her most famous, most loyal ally in the world, Serena Williams. Now, when your best friend and most high-profile supporter agrees to unbox your product on camera for millions of followers, that is supposed to be a layup. That is supposed to be the easiest, most flattering piece of organic promotion money cannot buy. Serena Williams unboxing your brand should be the moment your lifestyle empire announces itself to the world. What actually happened was something else entirely. Serena opened the box. The chocolates arrived completely smashed, broken, stuck together. She looked at them on camera, and the expression on her face said everything that her words were trying very hard not to say. Then, and this is a detail that made the whole thing go viral, Serena admitted on camera that she does not even like chocolate. She tried one anyway and said they were beautiful while visibly struggling. Then came the candles. The candles that are, according to Meghan, inspired by her children's birthdays. Serena attempted to read the scent notes aloud. She could not pronounce them, multiple ones. She ended the video with, "Looks good. I love you, Meghan." The video went viral within the hour. Piers Morgan's verdict was immediate and unsparing. When your closest, most famous ally in the world cannot pronounce your product while actively trying to sell it, that is not a bad PR day. That is the end of a brand. And the facts sitting behind that viral moment only make it worse. On Meghan's luxury clothing resale platform, she had sold 8 items of clothing. 8! Some customers received candles with no wicks inside. The original jam launch, the grand debut of her entire lifestyle empire, saw labels peeling off jars before they even reached the people who bought them. A woman who once held a $100 million Netflix deal, a $20 million Spotify contract, the most recognizable name on the planet for a solid 3-year window. And the commercial reality she has built from all of that is broken chocolates, wickless candles, and 8 clothing sales. Nobody is buying it, literally. Truth 7. The Ukraine speech that crossed an uncrossable line. This one is different from the others. This one is not about branding or contradictions or viral disasters. This one is about power. Who has it? Who doesn't? And what happens when you use a title you abandoned to wade into geopolitics on the world stage? Harry traveled to Ukraine as a private citizen. No mandate from Britain. No official role. No authority from the palace, the government, or anyone else. He sat alongside heads of government and former prime ministers and gave a speech calling for American leadership on Ukraine. A speech that directly contradicted Donald Trump's publicly stated position on the conflict. Piers Morgan called it infantile. He called it immature. He called it irresponsible. And the response from the White House confirmed that the speech had landed exactly as badly as Piers predicted. Trump was asked about it publicly and responded pointedly that Prince Harry is not speaking for the United Kingdom. But here is where it gets genuinely serious. Because while Harry was giving that speech from Kiev, telling the world this was exactly what he was born to do, King Charles III was preparing for the most important diplomatic moment of his entire reign, his historic address to the United States Congress. A moment of global significance that required precision, careful diplomacy, and absolute political neutrality. Harry's speech dropped 4 days before King Charles stood at that podium. The palace was furious. The British government was furious. And when you understand the context, a non-working royal stripped of his official duties by his own choice freelancing on geopolitics using the leverage of a title he walked away from, you begin to understand exactly why the fury was not just political, it was personal. Piers has said it simply. You cannot freelance on the back of a title you abandoned. You made the choice to leave. You made the choice to step back from royal duties. You do not get to invoke that identity when it is convenient for your global profile, and discard it when it requires actual obligation. The palace saw it the same way. And what came next was the clearest signal yet that the relationship between Harry and his family has crossed a threshold from which there may be no return. Truth 6. The the king's public snub that spoke louder than any statement. Pay very close attention here, because this is a kind of moment that passes in seconds but carries the weight of a verdict. During King Charles' address to Congress, one of the most watched, most reported royal events of the decade, holding him or her at Buckingham Palace until I am safely returned, the king spoke about American cities that carry the names of members of his family. He mentioned Charleston, named after King Charles II. He mentioned Williamsburg, named after King William. He did not say Harry. On the biggest stage of his reign, in front of the President of the United States and both houses of Congress, listing the ways in which his family's history is woven into the fabric of America, he left his second son off the list entirely. Piers Morgan spotted it immediately. He called it deliberate, public, and unmistakable. Not an oversight, not an editing decision. A signal, a clear, cold, calculated signal delivered in the most public forum in the world to an audience of hundreds of millions that cannot be walked back or explained away. Now, put that alongside what happened to Prince Andrew. Charles stripped his brother of every title, every patronage, every official connection, and his home. He did it quietly. He did it completely. And people close to Charles are now telling Piers Morgan that the question being asked inside the palace is whether Harry is next. Charles apparently wrestling with what those close to him are describing as a nuclear option, doing to Harry what he did to Andrew, removing his titles, ending his official connection to the royal family entirely. And here is the argument Piers makes that should genuinely terrify Harry's team. Andrew disgraced himself. He never publicly attacked the family. He never wrote a memoir dismantling the institution from the inside. He never gave Oprah Winfrey 2 hours to detail everything he believed was broken about the people he grew up with. He did not go on Netflix. He did not spend 400 pages of his own book describing the royal family as cold, cruel, and impossible. Harry has done every single one of those things. And if Charles stripped Andrew for what Andrew did, what logic prevents him from doing the same to Harry for what Harry has done? The question is no longer whether this is possible. The question, according to those close to the king, is whether it is inevitable. Truth 5, the friendship playbook. Let's talk about the people who have been cut out of Meghan's life, not as gossip, as a pattern. Piers Morgan has always maintained that the most revealing thing about any public figure is not who they surround themselves with. It is who they have systematically removed. And when you look at the list of people who have been close to Meghan Markle, truly close, not PR adjacent, and then look at what happened to them, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Her entire family on her father's side, gone. Her father himself, a man who famously staged paparazzi photos but who has been entirely cut off since. Friends she described as lifelong advisors who worked closely with her during the early years at the palace. Multiple staff members who left in circumstances that generated a formal bullying inquiry from the palace itself. Former Communications Secretary Jason Canoff put his concerns in writing, a black-and-white email to his superior describing a pattern of behavior toward staff. He used specific language about staff being bullied out of their positions and their confidence systematically undermined. That is not an anonymous source. That is a named individual with documented evidence. Piers has said this clearly and without hesitation. A woman who has removed virtually everyone who ever challenged her, who has cut off her own family members one by one, who generated a formal workplace investigation at Kensington Palace, is not in any position to be hosting a podcast about the art of friendship and human connection. She recently launched content about how to be a good friend. Piers' response to that framing was immediate and characteristically blunt. As one of the many people she cut off spectacularly the moment she got a bit of royal traction along with her entire family on both sides, he said he does not believe Meghan Markle is in any position to be lecturing anyone about friendship. The audience has started to agree. Truth 4, the visa time bomb. This is the one Piers Morgan calls a quiet danger, the one that isn't generating the most headlines right now, but that carries in his assessment the most genuinely serious long-term consequences of anything in this entire story. The Heritage Foundation, Washington's most powerful conservative think tank, has been fighting in federal court to obtain Harry's U.S. immigration records. Harry and Meghan debacle touched down in Germany today after a whistle-top tour of the UK, which they didn't find time to meet any of their family. The reason is straightforward, and it comes directly from Harry's own memoir, Spare, published under his own name for the entire world to read. Harry openly admitted to using cocaine, cannabis, psychedelic mushrooms, and ayahuasca on a U.S. visa application. Concealing prior drug use is not a technicality. It is not a minor administrative oversight that can be clarified at a later date. It is a federal offense that is grounds for deportation. The Heritage Foundation's own attorney stated plainly in open court, if he lied, that gets you deported. People are routinely deported for lying on immigration forms. These are not theoretical consequences. They are applied regularly to people with far less public profile than Harry. The Department of Homeland Security fought the release of these documents for 2 full years. A federal judge ordered them released. They arrived 82 pages long. More than half was redacted. Think about that. 82 pages of immigration documents, and more than half is blacked out. What is in those pages? What is being protected and from whom? Under this administration, with Trump's Department of Homeland Security in charge and, to put it mildly, zero goodwill toward the Sussex household, Piers Morgan says this case is far from finished. He has said on air with characteristic understatement that there may be trouble ahead. He is not overstating that this is not a tabloid story. This is an active federal court case with a named attorney, a named petitioner, and documented admissions in Harry's own published words. The clock on this is still running. Truth 3, the financial reckoning approaching at speed. Piers Morgan has always said the money will be the final truth that mattered. Not the titles, not the drama, not the interviews, the money. This week, that picture came into sharper focus than at any point since they left the UK. Financial experts close to this story are now giving Harry and Meghan roughly 5 years before they face what one source described as a reckoning they cannot style their way out of. Princess Diana's inheritance, according to reporting close to the family, is largely gone. The inheritance Harry received from the Queen Mother when he turned 40 is reportedly disappearing fast given what the couple spend each month. Now consider what they are actually living on. The Netflix deal is up. Spotify is done. The As Ever lifestyle brand is not performing at anywhere near the level required to sustain their current lifestyle. The Invictus Foundation is a charitable vehicle, not a revenue stream. And here is a detail that had become a quiet punchline among people who live in and around Montecito, one of the wealthiest postcodes in America. When you buy a $14 million house in that community, you renovate it. That is not a flex. It is simply what is done. You spend another $7 or $8 million, bringing it up to the standard the neighborhood expects. Harry and Meghan moved into their mansion as they found it, a property last properly updated by a Russian billionaire 15 years ago. In Montecito, that is a financial signal. The people who live around them can read it clearly. They are described by those in that community as the poorest rich people in the room, and not in a charming, understated way. In a way that speaks to the reality of what happens when you spend your capital instead of investing it. 5 years of reserves before a lifestyle change becomes unavoidable. That is the estimate, and not one of their current revenue streams is performing at the level required to push that timeline out. Piers Morgan has always said, when the money ends, the real story begins. The real story is beginning now. Truth 2, the bullying files and the institution that fought back. Let's not let this one get buried beneath the lifestyle brand coverage because it is arguably the most institutionally serious allegation that has ever been attached to Meghan's name, and it has never been properly resolved. In 2021, Kensington Palace announced it was launching a formal investigation into bullying allegations made against Meghan by multiple members of staff. This was not a tabloid story. This was the palace itself, an institution that goes to extraordinary lengths to avoid public conflict, announcing publicly that it had received enough credible information to warrant a formal inquiry. The timing of that announcement was notable. It came days before the Oprah interview aired. The palace made clear that staff members had come forward, that documented communications existed, and that the matter would be investigated. The investigation's findings were never publicly released. The palace said the findings would remain confidential. Meghan's team called it a smear campaign timed to damage her before the interview. But Jason Canauf went on the record. His emails exist in black and white. His language, specific, measured, professional, describe a pattern of behavior that had caused serious harm to people working in close proximity to the Duchess. 2 people specifically described as having been bullied out of their jobs. This is documented. This is named. This is not a rumor. Piers Morgan has returned to this point many times for a simple reason. An institution that protects the monarchy above almost all else decided that the allegations were serious enough to announce publicly. That is not nothing. That is the opposite of nothing. And when you place that formal inquiry alongside the trail of cut-off friends, estranged family members, and departed advisors, a pattern that stretches back years before she ever joined the royal family, you are not looking at a series of unfortunate coincidences. You're looking at a consistent documented record, one that Piers Morgan has been citing, sourcing, and standing behind for half a decade. Truth 1, the one truth you cannot recover from. And here we are. Number 1, the truth that Piers Morgan identified the moment Meghan first sat down with Oprah Winfrey. The truth he stated so plainly and so directly that it cost him one of the biggest jobs in British broadcasting. I'm actually genuinely curious. Are there any fans of Meghan Markle in tonight? The truth that 40,000 people filed formal complaints about. The truth that Meghan herself filed a personal complaint against him over. The truth he refused, despite losing his livelihood, to retract. He said, "I do not believe her." Not, "I disagree with her characterization." Not, "I think certain details require clarification." He said, "I would not believe her if she read me a weather report." That was 2021. Now look at this week alone. She told the world she was the happiest she had ever been. Then she told the world these were the hardest 7 years of her life. She told Australian school children she was the most trolled person on the entire planet for 10 consecutive years. She told her followers she is ready to reign again. And she told Harry's family through Oprah, through Netflix, through 400 pages of memoir that they were cold, cruel, and impossible. Ask yourself the question Piers has always asked.